Hey guys and girls, this morning we're on board Kawasaki's 2021 Ninja ZX-14R. Welcome aboard. I'm just going to give you a quick run up the road here to give you a sense of what this bike's all about. And fans of Mad Max may well recognise Emu Creek Bridge, which we're about to go past from the final scene of that iconic flick. Anyway, here we go. ZX-14R, it's been around for a while now. Predecessor was the ZX-12R that moved aside for the ZX-14 in about 2005, 2006, and then from 2012 it got the R designation. It got a boost in engine capacity and a pretty major overhaul. Hasn't really changed since then though. So on today's modern roads with their modern speed limits and modern policing strategy, shall we say, is it still relevant? Well, let's try and find out. So the first thing I'll mention about the ZX-14R is just the ride position. I mean, Kawasaki bills this as its king of all sports bikes, but I wouldn't really say it's a pure sports bike. It's a sports tourer, and with this much performance potential, you'd probably call it a hyper-sports tourer. The ride position's really pretty accommodating. I'm on the bigger side. I'm 6'2", 95 kilos. I'm finding it pretty comfy. There's reasonable leg room. The seat's nice and compliant. And you know, if you want to, if you're going for it, you want to hunker down behind the screen. There's plenty of room to do that too. But of course, this bike's all about performance, and it's got no shortage of that. We're talking 200 horsepower or 210 horsepower with the effects of ram air. And you know, if you're going for it down the main straight at Phillip Island, well, you're certainly going to be feeling the full benefit of that ram air. It's a 1441cc inline 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated, and that's a point of difference these days because, of course, sitting above it in Kawasaki's range is its H2 models, the Ninja H2 and the H2 SX, which are, of course, supercharged. So a bit of a question mark over how long this model is going to continue. It was in fact dropped in Europe in 2020 because it doesn't meet Euro 5 emission standards, which came in at the start of 2021. So that fact, along with the fact that it's got renewed pressure now from competition, its arch rival, the Suzuki Hayabusa. Who knows if this is going to continue, be updated and overhauled, or whether it's going to be dropped altogether. Of course, we thought the same thing about the Hayabusa. Last few years, everyone was saying it was going to be discontinued, and then Suzuki turned around and overhauled it, made it Euro 5, added a heap of electronics, and that new generation model is getting, well, we're just a couple of months away from it being in Australian showrooms. Speaking of technology, that's probably the one area where this ZX-14R is really showing its age. It's a pretty basic package by today's standards. The instrumentation's really old school. We've got twin analog dials there. Got a Digi LCD display in between the two analog dials, which is pretty busy actually. And if it's backlit, and especially if you're wearing a tinted visor, it can be quite difficult to read. We've still got a few niceties. You get a choice of ride modes, but there's just two. You've got full power and low power. Low power essentially being a rain mode. But there's nothing like, well, you can forget your TFT instrumentation. You know, there's no quick shifter. There's no electronic cruise control, which is probably one of the biggest minuses on this bike. Being a sports tourer that's entirely capable of longer distances, and being as fast and as smooth as it is, you know, cruise control would really go a long way to helping you preserve those precious license points. But the performance, what can I say? There's only so much you can do with this thing on a public road. We're in an 80k limit at the moment. We've got nothing behind us and we've got plenty of vision. I might just back off for a bit and just try and give you a sense of what it's like under hard acceleration. First gear, back down to 20, and we'll just roll on. That's it, 80 k's an hour. So 20 to 80 in a blink of an eye. But it's really a split personality. It's actually incredibly docile to ride at road legal speeds, and it doesn't really place that little devil on your shoulder that's constantly telling you to wind it on. You can ride this in a really relaxed manner and not feel that you have to really get amongst it. Of course, the flip side to that is that it's actually so refined, so smooth. There's barely a hint of vibration throughout the rev range. It's all too easy to feel that you're actually doing a significant amount less than you actually are. You know, it's all too easy to accidentally glance down and see that you're doing 20 k's an hour over the limit. So a bit of care is still needed. But it gets through the bends really respectably well. It's not a sports bike, well, not a pure sports bike. It's not going to get through a chicane like a ZX-10R will. And its native environment is probably more open sweepers like this than tight twisty stuff, but it still gets through the bends pretty swiftly, and it's incredibly stable. It's rock solid really, and I've done a couple of trips on this now through the Yarra Ranges, really tight twisty stuff, and over some pretty crappy surfaces too. It just sort of hangs on, holds its line beautifully. You can power out away from corner apexes and hit some bumps and potholes, and it pretty much stays true to its line. So, if it is showing its age a bit, and there's a question mark over its future, and you know there's a lot more modern stuff out there, including that next gen Hayabusa, why would you buy one? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Well, first and foremost, it could well be at the end of its production run, but the flip side of that is that it's pretty much had every single little bug and foible ironed out of it. It's just a tried and true recipe, and a lot of people appreciate the fact that it's low tech. You know, I've spoken to a couple of owners who all that fancy stuff, it's not a big deal for them, and that goes hand in hand, I suppose, with riders of a certain age too. If you've been riding longer than we've had all the fancy electronics, then you know you're going to have a different outlook on it. The other thing is price. $22,099 plus on roads. So that is quite a whack less than the new Hayabusa. New Hayabusa is it's something like 28,000 right away from memory, and it's still an awful lot of bike for the price. I mean, as a dynamic package, this bike works well, does what it says on the tin. You're not going to be disappointed, that's for sure. Just speaking again on the electronics front, of course the biggest drawback, apart from that lack of cruise control, is that in the safety stakes we don't have an inertial measurement unit. That means there's essentially no cornering ABS or cornering traction control. You do get ABS, it's non-switchable, but you wouldn't want to switch it off anyway. And you do get 3-level traction control, but they're dumb systems. You know, they're not dependent on lean angle at all. That's probably the biggest change compared to the modern bikes today. Oh, and also you can't alter those settings, neither the power settings nor the traction control settings, while you're on the fly. You have to be at a standstill, which can be a little bit annoying. I've really been enjoying the time that I've spent on this bike. You know, I've done best part of 1,000 k's now, put it through a whole variety of different riding scenarios. I've commuted on it into the city for work. I've done some longer trips in the countryside, plenty of highway touring, and a couple of those strops through the hills. And I have to say, it's handled it all with ease. This big capacity engine too, 1441 cc's, you know, you get the sense this is going to keep going forever and ever. And you know, if you're a big fan of Team Green's naturally aspirated big fours, and there's some, this is the, you know, towards the tail end of an incredibly proud lineage of models that stretches all the way back to the Z1 of 1972 really, and continues on with models like the Z1000, the GPZ 900R, GPZ 1000, ZX11, ZX12R, and now this. You know, if you're a fan of those big, lazy, torquey, powerful mills, you're not going to be disappointed with this bike. Anyway, got a couple of nice bends coming up, so let's enjoy this bike to the full, and you'll be able to catch, well, perhaps not to the full, but you'll be able to catch a full review on bikesales.com.au with a video review very shortly.